Today, joining me now is New Mexico Senator Ray Luján, who questioned Kennedy as a member of the Senate Finance Committee today. Senator Luján, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
It's an honor to be with you today. Thanks for having me.
Well, it's an honor to have you here. Let's start with one of the big topics. Mr. Kennedy today saying he is not anti-vaccine. Of course, a lot of people have noted that goes against a number of public statements that he has made. Do you believe him when he says he's not anti-vaccine?
Kristen, through all the questions that were asked today, what was clear is that podcast after podcast, recording after recording, and book after book that Kennedy himself wrote, it's all clear. He is not for vaccines, against vaccines, has made the argument over and over again, and he's profited, made millions and millions of dollars off of this position as well. So, look, that's just one of the questions that I think had both Republicans and Democratic members of the United States Senate puzzled today.
I want to play some of your exchange with Mr. Kennedy today. Get your reaction on the other side.
Yes or no, do you support cutting Medicaid or reducing, and especially in an area where you and I spoke about with the federal investment in Medicaid, which is known as FMAP?
I'm going to call it a restroom break. President Trump has not told me to, that he wants to cut Medicaid. He's told me to make it better.
Do you support cutting, yes or no? Let me ask you this way, since it's only about President Trump.
I support making it better, Senator.
If President Trump asks you to cut Medicaid, will you do it?
Oh, it's not up to me to cut Medicaid. It would be up to Congress.
Senator, what did you make of his answers? Were they satisfactory to you? Was that what you were looking for?
Absolutely not satisfactory. What was clear is he was trying to evade the question, number one. When my Republican colleagues would ask a question or two, it seemed like he had a straight answer, knew the policy. But what was clear today, whether it was this hearing or other hearings, from Mr. Kennedy himself saying President Trump said to do this or not to do this, what's clear along the lines of one of my colleagues asking him questions, that he's just going to be a rubber stamp here today. And it's not hard to say that if you support Medicaid as a program to deliver health care to millions of people across America, that the answer is simply no, you will not cut it. But he couldn't muster the strength or the courage to do that. It was very unfortunate.
So just to be very clear, it sounds like you're a no vote for Mr. Kennedy?
Look, I'm doing my best to stay open-minded to all of these folks today, but this hearing today, not giving clear answers to members of the United States Senate, whether it's asking about vaccines or Medicaid or other programs itself, not being able to answer simple questions about the responsibility to be the top United States health official as the Secretary of Health and Human Service is very, very concerning. And as of right now, where I'm sitting, waiting for more questions to be answered, I certainly am leaning no.
Very quickly, do you think he has enough votes to get confirmed right now? Do you have a sense of it?
You know, it doesn't seem to me right now that he has or does not have the votes based on some of the questions that were being asked today. And one thing that I'm good at is counting votes. And right now, I can't count the votes that get him over the top. We'll see what happens between now and the time that he gets to the floor.
All right, we will see what happens indeed. Let me get your reaction very quickly. President Trump had this, frankly, surprise announcement that his administration is planning to put some of the migrants that they detained who are undocumented at Guantanamo Bay, at Gitmo. What was your reaction to hearing that? Is it realistic? What do you think?
This is the first of hearing that. One, I would say it's very, very concerning. Right now, even if you talk to the people that President Trump has appointed in this particular space, Mr. Holman and others, they're saying that they don't have enough money to carry out this nonsense that they're carrying out today. How are they going to even be able to do this, being that the cost alone of going to even look at Guantanamo Bay, you know, the one thing that President Trump should do to Guantanamo Bay is just close it.
You know, the White House is also revoking TPS authorization to hundreds of thousands of Venezuelan migrants who did have legal protection and work permits under the Biden administration. These are folks who followed the rules at the time. They're now at risk of deportation. It will probably get tied up in the courts, but what was your reaction to this?
So many of my colleagues here in Washington, D.C., Democrats and Republicans. We've all been asking to fix a broken immigration system. One of the legal pathways to immigration in America is using TPS, which is a tool that Democratic and Republican presidents have both used. As a matter of fact, President Trump used TPS the last month that he was in office during his first term. This just doesn't make any sense associated with what we're seeing from Hallman, not only looking at targeting TPS, but now going into churches and schools. Democrats want to work with Republicans to fix this broken immigration system, to provide support for border security investments as well. But what we're seeing coming from this administration should concern so many people. And remember, it was this president that brought us separating kids from their families as well. And I'm terrified what we're going to see coming up in the next few weeks, the next few months.
Speaking of working with Republicans, let me ask you, 12 of your Senate colleagues, including your neighboring state's Senator Ruma Gallego, voted for the Laken-Riley Act. President Trump signed that into law today, of course. They appear to have seen this as an opportunity to address some of the concerns that voters say they have about issues at the border. Why didn't you? You voted no.
Well, look, I'm not going to speak for my colleagues' votes. They can speak for themselves. I voted no against this piece of legislation because of concerns of what it ultimately would do. This is going to take resources away from other officials that have responsibility for going after criminals. There's a question of what beds would even have to be made available if someone was detained for stealing gum, for example, if someone that was being held and incarcerated for murder or for rape, if they would have to be let out in order to make room for them. This bill, as written, does not make any sense. As a matter of fact, Democrats were asking for amendments on this particular piece of legislation. So, one, we may not be able to fix it entirely, but you could make it work a little bit better. And our Republican colleagues were more about the politics than they were about the policy. Just as when Donald Trump called on our Republican colleagues as a candidate to take down a bipartisan agreement which would have been one of the toughest border security bills in the history of the United States, using social media, Donald Trump told Republicans vote it down, and they voted it down. They just fell in line. That's no way to fix a broken immigration system in America.
All right. Senator Ben Ray Luján, thank you. Please come back soon. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.